you hear and lessons that you learn can be transitioned not just from commercial real estate, but any part of life, and of course, any part of business thereafter. So my name is David Peel. I'm a CCIM. I'll be your moderator today. Um, First off, I want to start by introducing our Northern California's premier commercial real estate network, and that is the very first CCIM chapter, Northern California chapter. We have over 250 brokers of all various real estate types, a lot of which are on this panel: multifamily, retail, industrial, and office, and every subsection thereof. We have asset and property managers, developers, fund managers, syndicators, attorneys, and accountants, everything. And we tend to do over $1 billion in annual deals. Becoming part of the CCIM group and the CCIM chapter, CCIMs overall tend to do 42% more transactions annually than a typical broker specialist. And it's because they've taken the time to get that extra analysis, get that extra education to learn what can separate deal A from deal B and present that deal to a client and quantify the difference between the two to a client, which typically solidifies a relationship in the business world. 67% of CCIM designees are an owner or a partner or a principal or something thereof, and 95% of CCIM members said the designation was important to careers. And I'm going to guess by all the panelists here that every single one of us are going to agree, because I believe all of us have a story of the CCIM and how it helped us. In 2021, Helen Chong and her recent predecessors represented the diversity of our membership and leadership. This right here are existing and some almost immediately recent directors and past presidents and potential current presidents. So we tend to have one of the most diverse leadership groups, all ages, genders, ethnicities, backgrounds, religious, etc. And this is your current 2021 NorCal CCIM leadership team. So we have Aziz Khatri as the past president, Tim Tran, Helen Chong, who's also on the panel, as our current president, Tim Talansky as treasurer, Doug Dransfield as secretary, and Teddy Swain as our technology officer. Want to thank our sponsors. Our platinum sponsor for the CCIM Northern California chapter in this event is Sensiva Sanfilippo, Public Accountants and Business Advisors. The silver sponsors would be CEC, Deferred Exchange Company, and Golden Pacific Bank. All three of these companies come extremely high, recommended by most of the people over in CCIM, and many of us have had dealings with these groups. Bronze sponsors include the Business Finance Capital Group, U.S. Bank, Exceed Commercial Education to continue your real estate license, IPX 1031 Exchange, Rubicon Mortgage Fund, which is a hard money lender, and our media sponsor, it's the San Francisco Business Times and the Business Time Group overall. Being that it's COVID, currently we're having our monthly virtual meetings. We have our chapter meetings every second Tuesday from 10 to 11 a.m. along with the virtual mentoring session, and we have deals and drinks. We're also having our second annual commercial real estate golf tournament held in September 20th, 2021 at the Sequoia Country Club in the Oakland Hills. This is going to be sponsored by CCIM, the Crew chapter in the East Bay, and the Commercial Brokers Association. So we are always looking for leaders and volunteers. We have a short list of the past and current leadership, including some that are sitting with us today. And we're always looking for more volunteers. I could tell you this personally, and I bet many of us can tell us, including Helen and Steve. People like to do business with other people that they know and trust, right? So if you're involved, like many of us are seeing nowadays, in a multiple offer situation, and you tend to know one of the brokers, by having that existing somewhat personal, somewhat business relationship combined, it already helps you get a leg up in the deal. I can speak to that with my own anecdotal evidence, as I know Steve can, as I know Helen can, and I'm sure Eric and Aziz can as well. But not only does it help your business career, but you help, kind of pass the torch forward with the people that are coming into the group to learn and be just as educated as some of us who have been doing this for many, many years. You can stay connected with us on pretty much any platform, Facebook, LinkedIn. We have a members only NorCal CCIM group for referrals and deals. That is for members only. And we tend to put periodic YouTube presentations, including some of the ones that we've had recorded in the past. Terry, by chance, do you know, or Helen, perhaps you know if this is going to be recorded and put on YouTube later?
Yes, it will be.
Great, okay. In regards to membership, we have a few different levels. There's associate memberships. So that's $225 annually. We have designees and candidates, both for $175 a year. And then the sponsors range from between $1,000 and $5,000. And of course, each one of those sponsorships comes with a different set of pros and lists, depending on how big of a sponsor you choose to be with the group. So let's go ahead and introduce today's panels very briefly, and then we'll jump right into some of the questions that we have lined up for today. So again, my name is David Pio. I was chapter president in 2016. We have Helen Chong, CCIM, president from, she kind of did a dual COVID year from 2020 and 2021. You have Aziz Khatri, president in 2029. Steve Peterson.
19.
I'm sorry,
29.
2029, coming up. We got a long wait, sorry. Steve Peterson, CCIM president, 2018, and Eric Wren, CCIM president in 2017. So I'll leave this up for a couple minutes before I take it down so we can get a little bit more intimate. Excuse me. But what I'd like to do, and we'll just kind of start with the panel from left to right as displayed. If you could just please perhaps give us a background on yourself and a little bit as how you got started in both real estate, and we'll talk later about what got you started with CCIM. So Helen, why don't you go ahead and go first?
All right. So, hi everybody. Again, my name is Helen Chong, and I think my presidency is more like the COVID presidency for 2020 and 2021. So hopefully next year when Tim Tran takes over, our COVID pandemic is over at that point. But a little background about myself is that I've been in real estate for about 16 years now, and I started off as a residential broker. I am still a residential broker, but I also do commercial. One of the reasons why I switched from being a financial analyst into real estate is because I was very passionate about finding that financial security, especially because when I first moved here, I was 18 years old, and it wasn't because my family sent me here, it's because we were struggling in Asia so much that I wanted to really find a new life, and everybody was talking about this American dreams. And so I actually left my family and came here alone to really want to pave that path, hopefully for my family as well, to find that financial security here in America. Of course, have to learn a lot about the cultural difference, the language barriers. And then when I went into real estate, I realized that, there's just so much to learn, especially I was so focused on finding financial security. So I was really learning all the real estate investments strategies, and I would attend a lot of different seminars. But there, I do notice that obviously it's very male dominated. So when I first became investors, I also went into these blockage where contractors didn't really want to talk to me because I was too young. I wasn't a guy. I would have my husband to speak for me. I would give him the script, everything. And even, like just line items, like what he needs to touch on, because he was not actually in real estate at the time. But the conversation would go so much smoother. And I started to go into commercial real estate, and same thing happened. I felt that a lot of people just didn't really take me seriously. If I get a listing, I get comments like, well, how did you get this listing? And the worst part would be like, well, was it because of your look? And it's a little shocking sometimes. And I get so many of these comments, and sometimes I just brush it off. It's like, whatever, I'm not going to talk to you. I will just prove to you that I know what I'm doing. And because of these experiences, I really felt like I need something to show people that I do know how to do commercial real estate. I understand analysis. So that's why I started doing research and try to find education platform where I can get a destination and show them I am a commercial real estate expert. And that's when I found CCIM. But I wanted to also get to know who all these people are. So I started going to these monthly meetings in Oakland, and it was intimidating, of course, at first when I walked in. But I just kind of kept telling myself, you know what, I'm just gonna stay in here. I'm just gonna come every single month until I get to know the people here, until I feel comfortable. And I hopefully one day I will become friends with them. Never thought about leadership. I just wanted to meet people. And of course, from there, I think I have talked to David, Steve, Eric, Aziz, and Mark Hankins, and they were very welcoming. And I was asked to volunteer on the board and also committees, and that's how I started climbing up the leadership. So in the back of my mind, I kept telling myself that I have to be there for other people to accept me, not to wait for people to, just immediately come to me. So hopefully through this program today, we can also encourage other people just continuously coming to our meeting so that we can get to know you and also welcome you into our chapter and also earn your CSAM destination.
Thanks, Helen. So, and again, I think a lot of us are going to have similar and piggyback stories with each other. But next, let's go ahead and jump to Aziz. So Aziz, perhaps you could give us an introduction and a little bit of a discussion on how you got started in the real estate world.
Actually, thank you, David, for the opportunity. Before I talk about myself, I want to welcome Ted Dang. Welcome, Ted. Ted is a past president. Most of you don't know him. He's been around for a long time in Oakland. And Farah Wilder, she is representing California Association of Realtors. She specialized, her focus is the DEI over there. So I think she wants to know how we commercial brokers behave in this respect. So welcome, Farah. Thank you for coming in, both of you guys, and everybody else too. Yeah, after college and everything, I went into banking industry and didn't last too long. Corporate work and I didn't get along. Too much politics when you get in the senior levels, and I just not a politician, didn't work out. So then in 1989, I received my real estate license and I started working. And I run some other businesses also. And as far as anything being different or something, I really didn't feel anything. The reason being that I just assumed that's the way things are and I just work with that, deal with it. I never thought about that. Oh, I remember I had a printing business and I was applying for this SBA finance, not a financing, it was a preferential treatment to get business from central federal government. It wasn't SBA, sorry, it was another department within the federal government. And one of the questions was, have you ever been discriminated against because of race, gender, whatever? And I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I couldn't think of any reason, any instance where I could say, yes, I was discriminated. So I did not apply for that. And that was about 30 years ago. And I really personally haven't directly had, until very recently, there was something, somebody, they don't even know that I know that it was because of religion. And I'm not a religious person anyway. I don't practice religion, but they thought I'm whatever. So otherwise, I really personally haven't felt much discrimination personally. However, I feel very strongly about it. The reason is because in the last year or so, I've learned so much about discrimination, not just any discrimination, but it's beyond organized systematic discrimination that's happened here, that I really feel very strongly that yes, I came through CCIM. The reason I came to CCIM also, most people told me that, it's a white man's world, you can't succeed. And lots of people, brokers won't return my calls, right? So somebody told me, hey, you want to be recognized as a professional broker, commercial, you need to go get CCIM. And I heard from 2, 3 people. That's what I did. And then I've always been believed in the belief that if you want to get something, go get it and be involved and contribute. I've done that in other organizations, so that's how come I joined the committees, board, became president, and everything. And of course, with that comes all the recognition, and then everybody calls me. And when I call people, I don't even know them, and they know me because of the CCIM. So that has been a really, really plus. What I feel is that today, when you're talking about how I have succeeded or how we have succeeded, the next thing really is we have to tell other people what they can do to succeed. Not only they can succeed, but how can help they can also help other people succeed, the community succeed. And there is definitely inequality. We cannot ignore that. And we cannot just say that, okay, uh, everybody can be very tough, strong, and they can break all the barriers. There are barriers in the society. We need to get together as a community and help everybody get through those barriers. So anyway, as we said earlier, I can talk for full hour on this topic, but I will shut up. So next person, which is what Steve is going to go, right?
Yeah, so I'll take it over to Steve next. So Steve, kind of the same thing with you. If you don't mind talking a little bit about your background and how you got started.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Steve Peterson. I started in commercial real estate in 2003. I was at San Jose State University studying business and finance, trying to figure out my life. One night, I was up late night partying, actually, and I saw this infomercial. It was the Carlton Sheets No Money Down real estate system. And I was studying business at the time. I didn't know what business I wanted to go into, but I was definite about business. And so when I saw this no money down deal, I thought, hey, that's cool because I ain't got no money. Let me research this. I got the course. It was the best piece of education that I had ever seen in my life. And I did my first deal the summer of 2003. So I've been in the business 18 years now. And my first deal was a 6-unit apartment building. I did a master lease option on a 6-unit apartment building out of state where my dad lived. And I resonated to apartment buildings immediately because I grew up in East Oakland and I lived in apartment buildings pretty much my whole life. And what resonated with me about the apartment buildings were a couple of things is that people were living there. And what my experience coming up in East Oakland is that, we always had multiple pests and substandard, conditions. I never really lived in a building where there was a quality landlord. So when I got into apartments, I figured, hey, man, this is something I can do. I can make money and then I can make a difference. Also within the apartment business, math, I'm pretty good at math. And so the numbers intrigued me. I took several courses, the No Money Down course, Scott Shield, commercial, colossal cash and commercial real estate. All these courses that I took mentioned something called the CCIM designation. And it truly, truly intrigued me because I heard it 4 or 5 times. And so in 2007, I took my first CCIM course with the instructor by the name of Bill Moore. And it blew my mind, y'all. It blew my mind. And I came to the chapter. Of course, I was the only brother in the chapter. But what I saw in the CCIM chapter when I went was a group of people who were kind of dedicated to a process, this process of numbers and was kind of welcoming to me. And when I started my firm in 09, 2009, if you're in real estate then, people thought I was crazy. Everybody said, why don't you just join a big brokerage house? You're too young. So the market's crashed. But for me, there was a lot of barriers. And being Black in commercial real estate, you are always going to be one of the only ones in the room. But that didn't stop me because I felt as if, look, if I can get this CCIM knowledge, I get this designation, can't nobody stop me. They can't tell me nothing. I'm gonna have the internal knowledge to go out, start a firm, and be a top producer. And that's what I think today's meeting we're gonna touch on is, yeah, there's gonna be discrimination. There's gonna be barriers. There's gonna be challenges, no doubt. But you've got to have a strategy of how to blast through it. And I think the CCIM NorCal, CCIM National, for me, has been a supercharger to blast through those walls and blast through those barriers. So I'm excited about today, and we're gonna dive into this. But that's a little bit about me and my background. I'm excited to go forward and help people blast through their respective barriers.
I appreciate that, Steve. So lastly, on the panel for the introduction is Eric. So Eric, if you don't mind, just a little bit of background on how you got started in real estate.
Sure. I'm going to take 1 second right now to give a plug for our current president. Are you able to put that slide up?
Which one? Oh.
Yeah, one on her book.
Oh, here, let me actually, I could stop if when Terry jumps on. There he goes.
Yeah. So, and just talking about, I'm going to make a plug for this because I used to harass her all the time about putting down words. And, it's amazing what a person can do if they just take action. And, whether it's becoming a real estate agent, becoming a CCIM, or writing a book, it all is, it takes that willpower to start and, take action. And we're incredibly lucky that our current leader during this time of crisis is someone very special who, if you ever get a chance to read her book, very interesting. You learn a lot, and it's a real eye opener, about the world and about, what it's like to, so to speak, to come to America and what it really takes to make one's person, to be a success on that. So
thank you. Really appreciate that.
no worries. All right, enough about you now. Let's talk about me.
Just
So,
Eric.
Now the rest of the session is about Eric.
All Eric.
So for me, I spent 20 years in the medical device industry. I was a surgical sales rep and a product manager for minimally invasive surgical products. I literally wore a mask every day for 20 years before it became popular to do it now on that. I at the time was married. The old wife, she had a very successful company, and she needed help in real estate. I was getting kind of burned out, and I, going through that quote midlife crisis when I was in my early 40s, and decided, hey, you know what? I have a couple relatives that were making some good money in commercial real estate. Man, that should be easy to do. Let's go over and do that. I mean, it's not brain surgery. Get the joke? So, because that's what I was doing. So anyway, when I came over, the problem I had was I was an older guy. And even though I rolled in looking older, looking like I had some knowledge, I had zero knowledge. Guy at the time, literally Steve and I, we started at the same time. So even though Steve's a young kid and I'm an old gray-haired man, we were both starting at the same place with that. So for me, I came in and, I think we're going to talk a little bit more about what CCIM was, but for me, it was coming over just as I was right out of college, but at the same time, they were expecting me to have all this knowledge, which I didn't have at the time. I just had the desire and the will to do what I needed to do to be successful. Yeah. That's kind of where I got to the point when started looking at CCIM. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about this in a more detail, but that's where.
So before we get into talking about CCIM specifically and how it kind of helped you break through some of these barriers, would ask, some of you guys to share your biggest challenges, specifically if you had any obstacles when coming in. I know, again, offline, not in front of the group, we've had discussions here and there. So with that, Steve, I'll start with you. If you have like one time that it really hit you, what your repetitive biggest challenge was, or if there was one specific time we could think of that, just really kind of slapped you in the face, figure out.
No, and there's several, but there is one that really stuck out. And, I've been doing this for a while. And before I got my CCIM, I talked about the courses and things that I was taking and I mentioned CCIM. Well, in about 05, 06, I went on a listing presentation. And I mean, I was on point. I had the numbers. This was a 6-unit building in Oakland. I was dialed into the numbers. I was at that point, I was really well versed to the numbers. Had some pretty good presentation skills. Yes, I was younger, but I was also with the firm at that time. We had a lot of experience in Oakland. And so I went to the listing presentation very prepared. very on point. And I went in and made my presentation. And at the end of the presentation, now the seller was a Black man. And we had built up some rapport. I went over the numbers, and he looked me dead in my eye and said, "Hey, look, that's a great presentation you have, but it's no way in the world I'm gonna let an N-word, list my property." And for me, that was a gut wrencher, man, because I'm in the, first of all, 6 units. I was gonna list the property at a million. It was gonna be $1,050,000, and it was gonna sell quick. And it was like, it was been my biggest listing. I was on point. I got the appointment. I did everything I was supposed to do. And for another Black man to tell me that, now he told me that, and he went through. It's like, look, I get it. You're great, but they're not gonna, the other brokers, and they're not gonna want to talk to you. They're gonna disrespect you. They're gonna think this package that you put together is wrong. I'm not gonna hire you. And so for me, that was particularly, man, I had to go home at night, and as a dog with these 12 between your legs type of thing. But I thought about it, was like, you know what, that element exists, and it ain't no way I'm gonna let that stop me. And that day I was like, I'm getting my CCIM. I've heard this thing, I've heard it said, and if I come in with the listing appointment, even if a guy, Black, white, whatever, comes at me like that, then I'm gonna let him know I got the CCIM, or her, or whoever, let them know I got the CCIM. I'm a certified expert. And not only am I a certified expert, I have the experience to back it up. So if that objection ever were to pop up again, and it's never happened specifically in a meeting, but when I needed some weight behind me. And that's why a big part of why I had pursued my CCIM out of that meeting, because as you could imagine, I'm looking at, and I had a couple buyers too. I'm looking at double ending this baby, getting 5%. It would have been my biggest listing, and it was a tough one. So there's going to be stuff like that out there. Where either that was pretty direct, and that guy felt comfortable enough to get at me like that. But the moral of the story, I think, for me is, and for y'all that listen to this, is that there's gonna be challenges. It's gonna be discrimination. It's gonna be racism. It's gonna be ageism. It's gonna be classism. There's gonna be nationalism. There's gonna be, we don't think your firm is too little. I don't think your firm can handle this. And the key is, what you gonna do when that objection hits you in the face? You can either fold up and fumble, or you can stand tall through it all. And that's what this organization is all about. No matter where you come from, makeup, race, it's about getting the skills, the background experience, the network to do what you got to do when you need to do it, no matter what's in your face. And so that was experience that kind of changed the course of my career, actually for the better.
So piggyback on that a little bit. I just want to mention, just like what you were saying, that we talk a lot about discrimination, but honestly, sometimes discrimination happens within your own race, your own ethnicity. I have very similar situation, is that even I always talk about, even in my book, I talk about discrimination back in Asia, but then also here is discrimination where same thing, another Asian potential clients, they won't hire me. And then repeatedly, I see over and over again, they hire different race. So that does happen. And in a way, it sucks to say it will exist no matter what. But just like what Steve is saying, how do you just keep improving yourself and just keep moving forward instead of complaining about it? We just got to keep doing it, and then be there and let other people who are willing to see you, let them be the one to accept you.
So Helen, let's keep going with your context. So you're talking about, you experience basically racism amongst people of, to a layman, like, oh, but you're Asian, right? So what's the difference? But as you mentioned, no, there can be racism within cultures, specific, parts of the area, the same way we kind of have oh, you're from New York, I'm from San Francisco, discrimination joke kind of a thing, town versus town, coast versus coast. They do that in the same country. They do that amongst different countries. Of course, it's not one giant cohesive unit, but you have a unique thing because you were younger and a woman and an immigrant and you're Asian. So perhaps you can elaborate a little bit more on, did you find that the biggest hurdles you were facing were people from your own not specific ethnicity, but, other Asian people, or was it more because you're a woman, or was it a combination of some of the items I mentioned?
I would say really a combination. And on top of that, I'm also a residential broker. So it's kind of like, well, are you a residential broker or are you a commercial broker? And I think one of my biggest issue is that everything is so divided. Everything has a category. Are you a woman? Are you a man? Are you Asian? Are you da 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 da? It's just go on and on and on and on. And you can keep stacking up on my resume with my title. But at the end of the day, that's why CCIM had made such a big difference. Now I can just say I am CCIM. I can use my CCIM analysis and made big difference compared with my competitors. And when I first actually getting into apartment multifamily, well, as a residential agent at the time when I first started in the business, I was struggling so much that I actually applied for a job as a marketing assistant with a big commercial real estate brokerage firm, and for this consultant who focused on multifamily, and with a plan or the goal is that I'm going to move up that team to become a consultant. And as you know, I passed all the interviews with every single person. Towards the end, they asked me this question: what is your goal, 5 years goal? And I said, I want to become a consultant, like a real estate broker in the multifamily division. They laughed. They were like, it doesn't happen. There's no woman here as a consultant. And this was 12 years ago. And I was just kind of like, what? So that killed my dream right there, as if like, wait, you cannot be a commercial real estate consultant if you're a woman. You're applying for a marketing assistant job, and this is supposed to be my destination. So that's when I was like, okay, forget it. But I'm so glad I never worked with them. And instead, I just went on to build my own company and got my destination.
So it's almost like they're pre-pigeonholing you, presuming that here's your glass ceiling kind of a thing.
Yeah. And it was right in your face. Like, there's no way you're going to become a consultant. It's like, and I went back, actually, I didn't realize it didn't hit me until I went back and started looking at their list. I was like, oh crap, there is no woman in here.
So before I jump to the next question, Helen pointed out in the chat box, and you can either use the chat box or the Q&A. This is meant to be interactive. So if anyone out on our attendees list wants to ask a question to any of the panelists, feel free to jump, or a combination of the panelists or a specific concern, feel free to type it in the chat box. So the two things that I'm hearing, and this is going to kind of pivot me to the next person, is, male tend to be white, tend to be male, tend to be older dominated field, right? If you're in commercial real estate, you got to be older, white, male, and then you'll fit in. And anything that doesn't fit in that box, you're going to get pigeonholed, or people are going to give you the deal, or people are going to, you're going to have extra barriers, extra steps for absolutely no reason. So Eric, you come from a unique point in the fact that you kind of fit the profile. You were a medical device person for 20 years. So at the time you had to be probably in your 40s-ish, something like that, still with the great ponytail hair, I would imagine. White and male. So tell us a little about some of the challenges, some of the obstacles you faced first getting into the business.
Yeah, I was in my mid 40s, and they say that it's an old white man's club, but those old white men don't want any more old white men in that club either. So that was literally in my interview after getting my my license. I went out for interview for a commercial firm. Literally the second with main guy in there, is an older white guy. First question he asked me, "How old are you?" And it wasn't, "How old are you? I'm curious." It's, "How old are you, and why are you so old to do this?" And before I came over to Kennedy Wilson, I was working a company, got a new manager in there. He literally sat me down in the office and said, "Eric, you started too late in this. You're never going to make it." There's another old white guy, so, I almost think it's your own quote people that are the ones going to like hammer you the most on it, because it's, it was one of those things was tough when coming in there, you thinking you have a ticket. It's like, "Hey, great, I'm going to play my white privilege card." And all those guys are, "Oh, you're too old for that. You don't, should have done that a long time ago." So, I think wherever you go, it's there's barriers that you're gonna, you always gonna have barriers, and I think it's like what Steve said is very, and Helen, and Aziz hasn't had a chance to say it, but it's the same thing. You always come across barriers. Some of them are high, some of them are low, some are easy to get over, some of them aren't. I always think, you got to think like you're in the military. If you come up to an obstacle, you can try a frontal assault on it, but you could do an in run around it, or you can get a CCIM degree and nuke them from orbit is the way to do it on that. So, part of that is no matter what you are, and let me tell you, if it's all white, are you Portuguese or are you a dumb Swede? It's no matter what you are, there, people find a way to have some way to discriminate you. Because like I said, when I was growing up, there was quote a lot of white people, but there wasn't a bunch of white people. There were Italians, there were everybody, they still divided themselves up. So you just got to figure, hey, that's going to happen. What can I do to make myself different? For me, being older, I was expected to have the experience, but I didn't have it. So that's one of the reasons why I went to CCIM, is because, hey, it makes you one of the smartest guys in the, most knowledgeable people in the room. And it didn't take long so I accelerated quickly past the people. It's an accelerant. It was something that really drove my career much faster than it would if I hadn't done it. And there was no free ticket either.
Yeah, I agree. Aziz, before we jump to you, we have a question from Farah. Are there any mentorship programs or mentors or organizations that you have found personally helpful in supporting your journey as members of underrepresented groups in commercial real estate? I know I'm the moderator, but I'll kind of say the one that's the obvious one, the CCIM, but then I'll let whomever else go ahead and take it away. Feel free to jump in as you see fit.
I can start with and then I'm sure others had some contributions also. CCIM at the national level has started the mentorship program, and we at our chapter have been struggling to work with, started to talk to the universities. We haven't had our inroads there yet. We are working on it to get our mentorship program started here also. However, I would say our mentorship program or CCIM program is not focused on underprivileged community. It's open to everybody. And that's where I personally feel that no matter what we say, there's some systematic discrimination that has happened in certain communities. You cannot expect the same, somebody who does not have parents at home to help them with schoolwork versus somebody else whose parents are always telling them that you are going to go to college. Huge difference. You can't expect the same thing from both of them. So we as a community have to work on that group also. And that's where I want to really emphasize that we are not paying attention to that. We need to work on that part too.
Anyone else have any suggestions for?
Yeah. Well, real quick, and how you doing, Farah? It's good to see you or be on this meeting with you. And CCIM has a great cultural diversity program, which is more designed for when people take the courses and get a pretty significant discount if you're any person of color, that you can engage that program. Now, I'm also a member of NARAB. NARAB's National Association of Real Estate Brokers. That's the Black Brokerage Association, and I had the honor of serving as president here in Oakland, but also as on the state board. NARAB was formed in 1947 because at that time, Blacks and other minorities were not allowed to be realtors. You were not allowed to join the local realtor associations. So, it didn't have access to the MLS, which was really a list of properties at that point in time. So I joined that organization. There's a commercial investment division, and the importance of that. There's also NARAB, National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, and ARIA, Asian Real Estate Professionals. Those groups are important, and each one of those groups has a commercial aspect of what they do. It's important because it allows you to connect with other people who come from the same struggle, but also allows you to mentor. So you can get mentorship from other people, and you can give mentorship to other people. And that for me has been huge, man, has been huge, totally. So to answer your question, Farah, those are a couple of organizations. NARAP for me has been major. It's been a place to go and with other Black folks and give something back and get something. And then I'm always talking about CCIM to everyone, and I've directed a few folks over from NARAP to go begin their CCIM. In fact, our national president, the next national president of NARAP, she is a CCIM, and we are looking forward to her coming on.
Nice.
I just want, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to pile on to that too, but you know, sometimes it's like, well, hey, you know, instead of necessary, you can go through formal ones, but you know, mentors, they're out there. You walk past them, you see them at these meetings all the time. The people that are talking, the people that are answering questions, those people are natural mentors. And you know, it's part of a mentee. If you see someone that is, you know, a talker and they're always likes to explain things, that's a person's a natural mentor, and you can kind of, you know, have more than one. It was easy enough for me to find out, you know, when I was in real estate, hey, this is a guy that they like to, or this is they explain, or they don't mind explaining things, or, you know, to have a conversation about stuff. So you can kind of, you know, naturally find a mentor out there just by looking how people act in a meeting and whether or not they present a lot at meeting, because presenters are usually natural born teachers. And, you know, you find one and start asking and develop that relationship. Just come up and, you know, every now and then ask a question and stroke their ego a little bit. You'll get them, you know, they'll want to answer.
Yeah, I used to do that a lot with Eric. But I absolutely agree with you, because when I first started, I think every single one of you here, I have had one-on-one conversation. And I remember I had a lunch with Steve, and then just kind of, we talked about our own businesses, how do you structure your team? And we watched each other grew from like a very small team, or maybe one or two people, to now, you know, just like, it's amazing to watch each other, how we grow. And of course, Eric, Aziz, and David Pio as well. So same thing, what Eric is saying is that a lot of us here in CCIM, we are business owners, not only an agent, but also very business minded people. And we had experience how to structure our team, how to grow our businesses. So mentors is everywhere. And you are definitely more than welcome. Doesn't matter which group you belong to just come and talk to us. Because we won't be able to mentor anyone unless you let us know that you would like that mentorship.
So Aziz, yeah, you had your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to just add to the same thing, is that I basically don't have any official mentorship program for me, but I'm available. I get calls from all over the country, from brokers, commercial brokers, residential, all over the country, literally asking me questions. And I don't even ask them, why are you calling me, or anything. From any company, they call me and I just answer the questions, and they appreciate it. And sometimes I get referrals through that, sometimes I don't, and that's not the point. The point is, anybody wants to talk about commercial. I used to go to Oakland Association of Realtors over there, do presentations and be available, and people still call me from there. In our office, we have a mentorship program within our company. In fact, we have a special DEI program that Farah knows about. The nationwide KW has it. In our chapter, in our office, there's a huge program going on right now, which includes mentoring and all kinds of other things. So on our level, whatever we can do, we are doing it, and we should be doing more. That's what I was saying earlier, that each of us have a responsibility, not just all the audiences, everybody's listening at our own level. We should be doing something to help the community.
So Aziz, why don't you keep on continuing? I'll jump to you, and then I have an anonymous attendee question afterward. But why don't you elaborate on some of the biggest challenges, and if you have any specific story or obstacle that you consistently hit, similar to what Steve, Eric, and Helen had mentioned earlier?
Yeah, mine is a little bit different. To tell you the truth, there've been a group of people that I talked to, and they suddenly realized that, oh, you know what? I didn't realize you're not white, or I didn't realize. In fact, I'm belong to a group there. I did a presentation about this Islamic event, the holiday that's coming up as a part of DEI, and people told me, "Oh, I didn't know you grew up Muslim," or something like that. It's just I just don't feel, I haven't felt much discrimination. However, I do feel, for example, just recently, this has happened to us twice. There was a property in Oakland. We did a presentation. They were going to list with us, and the husband and wife, and we were talking to the daughter, and then daughter said, "Yeah, fine. We looked at your program. Sounds good. Let me talk to my parents." The parents are the ones, the decision. They said, "You know what? They decided to go with a Vietnamese agent. They were Vietnamese or something like that." And that I see a lot of happening where they find somebody of their own little group, and then they go with that. And as far as the Indian community is concerned, I haven't really marketed to Indian community at all. I've never marketed to specifically to any ethnic community. So I've done maybe 2 deals or 3 deals with Indian community, and haven't had positive experience with them. So I don't want to go with them. And I think that's probably what Steve was saying, or I was in a meeting this morning at 7 o'clock. This woman was saying that the woman, they have, uh, if they're a very successful woman, the other woman are jealous and they want to fight and they want to basically hurt them in their growth. Similarly, I think that's what happens within our communities also, that when you're saying that uh, um, basically Indian people, but I'm from Pakistan originally, they want to not necessarily be working with me. They would rather work with a white guy. I had a very, very good client. He was an African American guy, and he told me that, you know, all these other people, they help each other grow, but us African American community, we are like turtles in the water, and they're trying to, somebody's trying to escape, and they pull them down and bring them. So basically, they don't want anybody to succeed. So similarly, I think those kind of things I've seen, not too much, but that's what happens, that within our own communities, people either get jealous or they feel that, you know what, you're black, you can't be that good at it. You're a woman, you can't be good at it. Or you're Indian, you can't be good at it. So I'm not going to work with you, even though they themselves are like we are. So those kind of things I've seen uh, a lot, and I don't really pay too much attention to that. I don't, like, for example, if these guys said that my parents decided to work with a Vietnamese person rather work with me, I don't get hurt too much because there's some reason, there are cultural reasons, the language barriers, there are lots of these kind of things that, so that's okay, uh, right? I mean, to a certain degree, it's okay. They are not, I don't think they are thinking that, oh, you know what, I don't want to work with this guy because he's, because of his background, he's not a good agent or whatever. They're working because cultural, language, and those kind of things are hard to, especially for older people with their community and everything. So that's all I have to say.
I'll jump in real fast before we jump into the question. I'll agree that there's definite discrimination, but sometimes it is more of a comfort factor, right?
Exactly.
They have person A, and person B, and they're relatively, similar on, pricing and presentation and skill level. But person B, especially if, the person who owns the property, the client who's looking to purchase the property is an immigrant, or isn't familiar with the language or isn't familiar with the culture, or wants someone to understand their language and culture for ease of discussion. If that person speaks that language, a lot of times, that agent B is going to get it over agent A if they're relatively on point. And again, I know I'm not a panelist here, but case in point, I look white, speak Spanish and Portuguese. And there's been times where, the deal was kind of teetering in the sense of whether or not I would solidify the relationship. And by the fact that I was able to speak Spanish to some of the relatives, kind of throws them off because A, I don't look like I would. But then by being able to speak their local language and have a little bit normalized discussion, at that point, they're not even looking at my skill level. They've seen it. They kind of look at, hey, I could be a little more comfortable than you. I'm going to understand it. You can literally read these two paragraphs and then explain it to me in my own language, right? So I'll agree with you that there's definitely times where, especially if the two people or the two agents competing for the relationship are relatively on par, there's always that extra plus one that one agent will have. So I agree with you on that.
David, I want to just add one little thing, which I always say exactly the same thing, except make it even simpler. You say, I went to Cal, somebody else went to Cal, right? Now they're looking at two agents, exactly the same thing. And the decision maker also went to Cal. They're going to pick me because they feel some community there, right?
Yeah.
So that's why those kind of things really are not, I don't consider that as discrimination.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
Eric, you were jumping in.
I want to add in there too. You know, when I came into this industry, I came from the medical device industry, and I came out and I decided to do industrial, and I'm a little bit farther out, and you know, out of the main city area. Well, when I came into this industry, I had 16 hand-tailored suits and a fancy foreign sports car. That was not who I was dealing with. I was like, oh, and in fact, I almost immediately, because I had hand tailored, you know, French cuffs with, you know, with cuff links, and I was like, oh man, so I ended up buying a white F 150 Lariat Super Crew. Why? Because that's the most common vehicle that these industrial business owners had. Khaki pant, all those suits. They're collecting dust in my closet. Literally, I never really wear them more. I had to change the way I look because I wanted to look more like the people I was dealing with. And I was still, you know, those are all white guys, but you know, oh no, you're dressing different than me. Yeah, I made the pivot to look like them because, you know, people that's some inherent is you kind of like someone who looks like you because you think yourself, oh, I'm good looking, so someone else looks like me, well, they were good looking, you know, and it's just kind of inherent in you that you kind of gravitate, you know, it's like old couples. Why do they look alike when they don't start turning like they start looking like? They picked each other because they kind of looked alike to start with on it. So it's in there, and sometimes you got to do that. And, you know, I think Steve, you put off a very, very professional, and I know you have a lot of different options of how you want to dress, but you've made a conscious choice to, hey, I'm going to project this image by the way I'm, you know, my appearance. And that's, you know, it's there, and just, you know, dress for success.
So Eric, you actually already answered this in the chat box. So we could just stare at your handsome faces that'll listen to you, sir. But anonymous attendee asked, how old do you think is too old to be a successful commercial realtor? Do you recommend opening your own firm? How did you do that, Helen? But Steve, you also own your own business. What were the challenges and what helped you?
Well, I just like what Eric was saying, it's like never too old. I think real estate is one of the best career you can have, is that you can never be too old to do real estate. You just need to have passion. And one of the things that opening my own firm, so I started opening my own firm as well, just like, that's why I talked to Steve Peterson, because both of us had a small independent brokerage firm, although 2 years ago, I plugged myself into this bigger brokerage firm, leveraging their technology, because for me, I just felt that I was a little bit too inundated with all these. I tried to catch up with the newest technology and design and all that stuff, while I really wanted to focus on transactions. So even though right now I am a part of a big brokerage firm, but they're white label, I still have my own firm's name, Halen. That is still my company. I'm building my own team within this brokerage firm. So in a way, I still see this as my own company. I don't feel like I am one of the agents. The challenges was that when I first started, again, a lot of people just did not believe that I am a broker. And when I'm with residential brokers, people felt like, oh, you know, you don't really dress like a residential broker. And then when I'm with commercial broker, there's like, oh, you're a residential broker and you don't fit into this typical commercial real estate broker's profile. So it's like, and honestly, even I'm with agent, I don't feel like I fit in, because they cannot figure out, are you Chinese? Are you Korean? Are you Vietnamese? Are you Southeast Asian? What are you? So I never had a title or category that I have defined myself. So I think that is what more important is, that your mindset. It's like, are you defining yourself already? You know, making a category for yourself already, because that's what makes you feel like you need to belong to certain groups only. And I guess that's why I love being with CCIMs, because we are just everybody who is passionate about commercial real estate and who likes to do analysis. And of course, we have our own challenges as well, I had my own challenges as a female broker. And when I try to get commercial listing, that's why I partnered a lot with Tim Tran, because I know for a fact that even when we're together, people talk to him more than they talk to me. I would walk in with another male real estate residential broker into a commercial listing. They were talking to him instead of me. So, you know, sometimes it sucks. It does feel like, hey, you know, I'm here too, but you know what? Leverage what you can. Any business, any operation is the same thing. We all have our own weaknesses and strengths. It's all about mindset. How can you leverage other people's strengths to help yourself? So don't be dwelling too much on what you are, oh, this is not fair and things like that. Dwell on how you can utilize that to make yourself better.
Yeah, and if I can jump in real fast, we only have about 4 minutes left. In regards to the age concept, when I started the business, Steve, I think you were a little younger than me, but I was 24. Steve and I actually took 2 CCIM classes together. But the thing that catapulted me to get to CCIM was I had real clients, and it was investors and industrial because of family background. And every time I'll try to talk to someone, my name isn't familiar or whatever it was, I would go look at the property, and this is pre-beard and different hairstyle and everything like that. And they were like, oh no, this kid, and this is in the recession, right? 2007, 8, 9, the world's collapsing. That completely disregarded. Somehow, somewhere, and I still don't remember how in the world it happened. I remember some of it was I found, and some of it I heard from someone in the real estate world. I kept seeing CCIM, CCIM. And I went and took the education. Similar experience with Steve. First class was mind blown. Finished the whole thing. And in 2010, when I got my designation, I remember countless times. I remember 3 vivid times at least. And right away, I would go talk with someone. They'd be very dismissive. I would have seen them at the property. Oh yeah, the appointments this time. I'll go see them at the property. Very dismissive, all that kind of stuff. And in the event that I send them an email, and just because I had that stupid little CCIM in my email, instant call back, totally different demeanor. Now I'll pay attention to you. So in Eric's case, he was too old. In my case, I was too young, right? Steve's case, he's too black. Helen, she's too Asian. Like you're never going to fit inside whatever that person's box is, right? Leverage what you can, but the CCIM, it cuts through a lot of the BS. And that was my thing. As soon as I got that, that was my leverage, because no one would mentor me when I first started. The world was collapsing, right? You know, I started off in a residential brokerage house. They only had 2 commercial guys that were kind of retiring out. No one would help me in that sense. So CCIM was my leverage, right? So, but Steve, you could go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, and I would just, piggyback what you guys are saying in terms of leverage, because look, whatever your challenge is, whatever the barrier is, hey, look, it's real, and I think, in the corporate America today, there's a lot of talk about diversity and inclusion. And a lot of it is more of, just checking a box, making sure you've got enough Black folk or enough women on your team or something to that effect. I think that as we move forward as leaders of the industry, and anybody here, the panelists certainly, but even if you're listening, you're a leader in the industry, whether you know it or not. I think it's important moving forward that we're not just checking boxes, that we're doing business and treating people with honor and respect. And it's like what Dr. King said, you judge someone by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. You see people for who they are, honor and respect that, and do business accordingly. Now, that being said, we talk about leverage, you're gonna need some leverage. And what I've seen about this organization, which would make me so passionate about it, is because diversity and inclusion is not a box checker at CCIM, right? Not NorCal, even in national. We go to national, a lot of people from the South, right? And they got different ways of thinking, political differences and all of this stuff. What I can tell you straight up is that the organization here locally and the organization nationally is actually very serious about diversity and inclusion from a standpoint of not just checking boxes, but actually equipping people with the tools, the skills, the networks, the job. When you go to CCIM corporate and you see who's working for corporate, I went to Chicago, I was blown away how many Black folk and Black women they had working for national, and the programs that they have and what's available to you can be used as leverage to catapult your career, no matter what your challenge is, no matter what your circumstance is. There is real institutional racism, there is classism, there is ageism, that all exists. It ain't going away. But you've got to use some leverage. It's right here in front of your face. You see the examples today. Take advantage of it, is the message. Take advantage of it.
So guys, less than a minute apiece, 30 seconds-ish. Last little bit, what would you help others with? What's one last little piece of advice you can give? So Steve, you were kind of just finishing talking. Why don't you go ahead and wrap it up, and then we'll kind of jump around.
Well, yeah, we talked about the leverage you get, but hey, take a course, learn the knowledge and network. I've closed a deal, every single CCIM I close, and I kid you not, I have closed a deal with someone from that class. Take a course, meet somebody, close some business, expand your network.
Eric?
I would say, think of it as like what the Marines say. You got to always, there's going to be barriers. You got to adapt, overcome, improvise, that use the tools that you have, whether it's getting a CCIM designation, buying a truck, changing your clothes, or becoming part of a leadership. You got to find your ways to, to make yourself, elevate yourself above the crowd. I tell you what, that CCIM designation, that's, you're standing on a box looking over all the rest of the brokers, aren't you?
All right. Helen?
I don't mean to plug in here about my book, but like the book that I wrote, it's called Power to Change Lives. Essentially, it's all about you have the power. It's all about your mindset and how you look at yourself. Stop giving yourself any categories, because don't put yourself in a box. Put yourself out there and let other people accept you, because there's so many people want to accept you, but you got to let us find you and see you. So CCIM, what I love is that we all have the same mission, or same goal, is that we love commercial real estate. We love analysis. We love to elevate the standard of commercial real estate. So if you have that passion, we don't care what color, what religion, who you are, female, age, whatever it is, just hopefully you can join us and be part of our team.
And Aziz?
All right, so you guys have said everything I wanted to say. So just a small thing that I want to say is really mindset. Make sure you have positive mindset. And once you have that mindset, then you can get whatever you want. I really, really believe in it. The negative you think, negative you're going to get. Positive you think, positive. So you want to get in a designation, you want to get a deal done, you want to go to an appointment, have a positive picture in your mind before you go there, and you will get it. So just have a positive attitude.
Yeah. And if I was going to leave someone with something, I would say 3 little basic points. Number one is everyone reiterated the whole point of the CCIM. Number one. Number 2 is we're in sales, so you kind of have to keep a positive mindset. You're going to hear 1,000 no's before you hear 1 yes, right? But that 1 yes is going to be your biggest listing of $1 million in 2006 that you might double land, or a big lease, or a big client that you nailed down, corporate account, whatever it may be. My random little tidbit is, and I only thought about it after Aziz mentioned, is especially if you like to travel, it's kind of like you hit 2 things at once. Learn a language you think might be useful, right? Number 1, because by simply learning the language, you kind of learn the culture, and that might help you connect with this group of people that maybe think that you don't fit in, kind of like how I was talking about skilled agent A, skilled agent B, but skilled agent B, speaks the language and knows the culture. They have that +1, just like, Aziz talking about with the UC Berkeley or whatever it may be. And then as a bonus, you ever travel to that country, or if you like to frequent that country, it's a whole new wealth of people that you get to understand with and speak to on a different intimate level. So those would be my little 3 points. So And with that, that is the end of our session. So I want to thank all the attendees, Steve, Eric, Helen, and Aziz. I'm sorry, all the panelists, my apologies. And I want to thank all the attendees as well. And this will be recorded, and in the very near future, it should be up on YouTube for you guys to go ahead and share. So thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you so much.
Have a
Bye.
great week.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.